Baltimore County police evacuate 2 schools after reports of a suspicious package. The possible connection to another incident currently under investigation. What does the future hold for Adnan Syed after his conviction was vacated? Fox 45 News investigates if he'll get a new trial or if his case will be dismissed after spending over 20 years in prison. More guns seized from students inside schools. The action one law enforcement expert says needs to be taken to keep your children safe.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 4.
We start with breaking news. We're following a tense and developing situation out of Baltimore County, leaving parents and students on edge. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mary Bubala.
I'm Kai Jackson. Now, here's what we know. Earlier this afternoon, both Pine Grove Middle and elementary schools were evacuated due to reports of a suspicious package found on school grounds. That led to a delay in bus service for a long list of county schools.
Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor joins us live with details. Rebecca, we hear there is a suspect in custody, correct?
Yeah, Mary, we know very few details about who that suspect is or what they've done, but we are being told that someone has been arrested in connection with this suspicious package, which police are now calling a suspicious device. Still an active scene here as they continue to investigate. Right now you can see there's a police car blocking us from getting to the school, which is just up the road here. As for what police are telling us, so far we know that that device of some sorts was found in a car outside of the middle school. We also know it's been neutralized and is no longer a threat to the community. According to Baltimore County School spokesperson, the school system only evacuated both Pine Grove Middle and elementary schools out of an abundance of caution. Elementary students were taken to Lock Raven High School, while middle schoolers were taken to Parkville High School for reunification. On Twitter, we're seeing that process is still ongoing. The spokesperson also telling us that they train constantly for these events, and all students and staff have been removed from school grounds safely.
Everybody's safe, everybody's fine. It's just a matter at this point of finding out what's happening on the police side of things and making sure that all our children can get home safe and sound.
Meanwhile, to some extent, we're still waiting on the police side of things as well. We're told this scene here in Woodlawn, which is about 20 miles west of Pine Grove Middle School, has some kind of connection to this incident. But all we know is that around 1 this afternoon, Security Boulevard from Woodland Drive to 695 was closed for several hours.
So there was an incident that occurred on Woodlawn Drive that is under investigation as well, and that is a part of this whole situation.
Police are saying that they will continue to update us as this investigation unfolds.
So a bit of a mystery in that regard, Rebecca. In the meantime, what are police telling parents to expect this week, Rebecca?
I'm not sure what police are saying, but we did speak to some school officials, and they're saying to expect business as usual. As we told you, they're saying there's no longer a threat. And as it stands right now, classes, they're scheduled to go on as usual tomorrow. So get your kids to class on time right there in the morning. We also want to say an important note. This evacuation took up a lot of buses. So there's about 24 schools right now that are seeing delays because of this process. So bear with the school district as this all continues to unfold. Reporting live, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
All right, Rebecca, thank you for that report. So some confusion, still some mystery surrounding this situation today regarding these schools. Their confusion and frustration, by the way, being played out on social media. Let's see some of the comments we're seeing coming in right here. Let's tap that. Deborah says, Baltimore County Police, this doesn't make sense. And I think that's probably the feeling of some parents. What happened at Pine Grove? Again, we'll try to get more information for you on this. For real, though, thought, what is going on? Middle school in Parkville is evacuated for a suspicious device. Now the area around a warehouse on the complete opposite side is being evacuated. Again, those are questions that need to be answered. And one here, this is so bizarre to me, given the distance from the road closure to the schools. We'll have more on this for you throughout the evening. Meantime, what happened to Adnan Syed? Will he be tried again? That's the big question tonight.
We have live team coverage. Mackenzie Frost has more on how both Syed's family and the victims' families are reacting 1 day later.
But first, Maxine Stryker joins us live right now to break down the next steps in the legal process. Maxine?
Well, Kai, to put it quite simply, Syed will either be retried or he will be a free man. But as of right now, Marilyn Mosby is not saying which of those things is going to happen. So his future is very much up in the air. Prosecutors have 30 days from yesterday to decide whether to seek a new trial. Criminal defense attorney Kurt Nachman, who is not involved in this case, says he's not sure if the state would be permitted to try the case because of the double jeopardy clause. Regardless, he says Mosby should have known what her next move would be before opting to vacate the case.
It's very unusual to vacate someone's sentence and not have a really good understanding of what your plan is to do with the case moving forward. In other words, the state really should have had an idea of what they wanted to do.
Now, if Mosby's office elects to dismiss the case outright, Syed would be a free man. Right now, we know he is home on home detention.
And Maxine, do we have any idea of who these new suspects are that are named in sort of these court filings and how they've changed things?
Well, Mary, there's sort of the basis of this entire motion to vacate, which was filed by the city state's attorney's office last week when these two new suspects came to light that defense says they did not know about, and the prosecution also says the defense did not know about. This is known as a Brady violation.
A Brady violation is when a prosecutor either intentionally or unintentionally withholds information from the defense. It comes up after a trial is concluded. You later learn, for example, in this case, there was another suspect that was not turned over to the defense team.
Nachman says that Brady violations are not very common. Maryland Attorney General Brian Frosch's office, they're firing back tonight, denying these allegations related to the Brady violations, issuing a statement saying that neither state's Attorney Mosby or anyone else from her office bothered to consult with either the assistant state's attorney who prosecuted the case or with anyone in his office regarding the alleged violations. The file in this case, he says, was made available on several occasions to the defense. But as far as who those two suspects are tonight, we're told police are investigating, but they have not released who they are. Prosecutors say, though, that they had the opportunity, means, and motive to kill Haymon Lee. Reporting live in Baltimore, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
Maxine, thank you. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost continues our live team coverage right now. Mackenzie, you saw Syed's family today. What are they saying?
Well, Kai, not very much. I spoke with Adnan's mother and his brother, and they tell me that on advice of their attorney, they're not really speaking publicly due to the fact that this case really remains in legal limbo. However, his brother did tell me that the news really still hasn't sunk in yet. He still feels like he's processing what happened. But in the meantime, the family of Haymon Lee, through their attorney, tells me that they are feeling betrayed from the news yesterday and still remain shocked.
Right there. In a sea of people, a wave of emotion. Adnan Syed walking out of the courthouse in downtown Baltimore after more than 20 years in a jail cell. Marilyn Mosby interrupted by the eruption of applause.
They let him walk down the steps of the courthouse to a cheering crowd like he's some type of celebrity. They did that on purpose.
Sean Kennedy with the Maryland Public Policy Institute says Mosby's timing raises questions and casts more doubt on the motive behind setting free a man who had his convictions affirmed time and time again by different courts.
Marilyn Mosby resurrecting this case, this zombie of a case, in order to score political points is just disgusting. And what she's doing and putting the Lee family through is outrageous. We should never underestimate the complete disregard that Marilyn Mosby has for victims of crime in the city of Baltimore if it suits her agenda.
The Lee family isn't speaking, but their attorney, Stephen Kelly, is, and he says the family is in shock.
The clients honestly are so distraught. Tuesday of last week was the first inkling that the family got that the state's attorney's office had taken a sudden turn.
Last Tuesday was also the day before Marilyn Mosby was back in federal court for her own trial. And on Friday, Kelly says the Lee family found out about Monday's hearing.
We worked as fast as we could and put together a motion asking the court to just delay this hearing by 7 days in order to give the victim an opportunity to come to Maryland, to be present in the courtroom.
But that motion was denied, and Heyman Lee's brother, Young Lee, was asked to join the hearing by phone.
Do you think that Judge Finn violated the Maryland's Victims' Rights Act by doing what she did yesterday?
Yes, he had that right, and that right was taken away from him.
After Syed walking out of the courthouse Monday, the Lee family is left wondering who killed Hay.
And they are, quite frankly, very hopeless about whether anybody's ever going to be brought to justice. The family is open-minded, and if there's real evidence that he didn't do this and if someone else did, they want to hear that. They didn't hear that. They weren't told about anything. They weren't told anything remotely resembling that.
And wondering why the hearing was held so fast, given the investigation from the state is not yet complete.
Now, the attorney, Stephen Kelly, tells me that Heyman Lee's brother would have been in Baltimore listening and in person for this hearing had he been given more notice to show up. Live downtown, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
All right, Mackenzie, thank you. Well, Judge Melissa Finn has handed down some other high-profile decisions. That includes the case of convicted arsonist Luther Trent. Judge Finn accepted a plea deal from Marilyn Mosby's office that released Trent from jail after serving less than 6 months. Trent admitted to trying to burn down his ex-girlfriend's house with her roommates inside it. Finn eventually overturned that plea deal. Trent is now back behind bars. This past June, police say Austin Davidson killed a Wicomico County Sheriff's deputy. In 2019, he faced 20 years for armed robbery, but Judge Finn sentenced him to probation before judgment, setting him free. And days after that case, Fox 45 News learned about Joseph Black, the man accused of hitting and dragging a police officer with his car. Was also out on a plea deal from Finn's courtroom. He had been charged with attempted homicide, but that was pleaded down to a handgun charge, setting him free after serving 20 months. Now, Sean Kennedy with the Maryland Public Policy Institute is critical of Mosby and Judge Finn.
The judge, at the end of the day, had the right to delay the hearing. The judge had the right to ask for more evidence, but the judge didn't do that.
That brings us to our question of the day. Do you agree with the decision to vacate Adnan Syed's murder conviction? So far, 64% of you say no. We want to hear from you. Go to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in. We'll check back in on these results throughout the night.
Today's suspicious package is not the only thing that has parents and students concerned. How law enforcement is trying to reverse the trend of seeing more firearms at schools.
A dead rat sits in a window of a city building for more than a year. What other issues an Inspector General report identified at a Baltimore health clinic?
Supply chain issues haven't gone away for America's manufacturers. I'm Atrell Nashar with just how hard it's hitting one of the country's biggest automakers.
Fox 45 News, winner of 17 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
In national news, the Federal Reserve has a two-day meeting that experts say is likely to result in another interest rate hike.
The anticipated move will make debt more expensive and is designed to slow down the economy in order to lower inflation.
A new report shows another slowdown occurring with manufacturers could have a ripple effect across the economy. National correspondent Atra Eldashar explains.
Inflation and supply chain issues are costing everyone more to get by. This week, Ford says it expects it to cost them $1 billion just this quarter. The company telling investors Monday it won't be able to finish between 40 and 45,000 trucks and SUVs because they can't get enough parts. It's an issue that's bogged down the industry throughout the pandemic. This local used car dealer in Texas still seeing the effects.
Everything seems to be high. Things that are in shorter supply seem to even go higher.
The latest government inflation data show used car prices are up almost 8% from a year ago. New car prices up more than 10%. The Ford news is casting a shadow over what was a strong point in the latest retail sales report showing a rebound in auto sales. But a louder warning is coming this week in a new survey from the National Association of Manufacturers showing nearly 8 in 10 of their members say that supply chain issues are their biggest challenge. Trouble finding parts and people. NAM chief economist Chad Moutre says 45% of their members have had to turn away projects because they can't staff them, with the sector 365,000 workers short.
I think that really speaks to just how much of a crisis this is, that it's having a huge economic impact as well.
3 out of 4 manufacturers still say they're optimistic about the future, though even while inflation rates have moderated somewhat, 40% say inflationary pressures are worse today than they were 6 months ago.
Is the economy going to get worse before it gets better?
No.
The president insisting it's uphill from here, but more companies are starting to hedge their bets against a downturn.
As people have started building in recession expectations, that I think was a sign that at least you could see some cooling in the economy.
A fine line that, combined with higher interest rates from the Federal Reserve, could mean the difference between recovery and recession. In Washington, I'm Atra Eldashar reporting.
All right, time for a check of our weather. Beautiful day out there.
I'm loving these days, Mary.
I know.
Love them.
So nice. What do we have, like a high of 80?
Yeah, 85 degrees today. Yeah, actually 84. I mean, who's counting?
Who's counting?
You know
the
what?
number is behind you, so that's...
there it is. Yeah, 84. And you know what? It's not going to be anything like this by the end of the week. So if you like fall weather, which I know Mary doesn't, you've got a treat in store. So everybody else, get ready.
There are more.
There's got to be a couple.
We're an army.
84 degrees. This is just some incredible weather, huh? 84 with winds out of the west at about 11 miles an hour. Humidity at 40%. Dew points in the 50s, so it is dry and it is warm. Toyota Asian Harbor Skycam looking real nice. Oh, looks like we got a little blank frame there. But nonetheless, on the weather map, really, really nice weather as a weather maker. A cold front slips off the east coast. And behind that, it is still warm. It's a weak front, so it is still warm, but it is less humid than it was yesterday by a little bit. Now, the sunshine continues into tomorrow, but it's not going to last long. Notice that cooler weather that's north and west of Minneapolis. Now, a double-barreled cold front here. That is going to move east, and that will be our next weather maker. And yes, that is going to mean some seriously cooler air just in time for the beginning of fall coming up on Thursday. Temperatures right now, they should be at about 79 for an average high. We're all 80 to 85. And look at this big heat. You thought it was warm here. 99 currently in Memphis, 97 at St. Louis, and it is still that warmer air arcing our way. So we will continue warm for tomorrow as well. Now, out in the tropics, we've got Tropical Depression number 8. That is newly formed, moving to the north at 10 miles an hour. So that's moving into the open Atlantic. Then there's Fiona, now a major Category 3 hurricane as of this morning. That could be impacting directly places like Bermuda. Maybe some swells coming our way later this week as it eventually moves its way as a strong storm, potentially still into the Canadian Maritimes. All the computer models you can see here taking it away from the United States. So that's some good news for us, at least. Those folks in Bermuda have to watch close. And then another system that's in the now central and western portion of the Atlantic looks like it moves over the windwards and eventually some inklings that it could end up in the Gulf of Mexico as potentially a named system. So that is something to watch in about 5 to 10 days from now. So around here, the future scan temperatures in the 70s falling into the 60s overnight, maybe even some 50s, upper 50s around. So refreshing. Tomorrow, lots of sunshine again. Another day spent well into the 80s. And then on Thursday, right near 80, some showers in the morning especially. And then look at that big cool down. Some of the coldest weather we have seen since spring of, well, earlier this year, with highs only in the low to mid 70s Friday into Saturday.
Jonathan, thank you. A bright spot now. Another birth gives more hope for a big return of a native species to the American West. The Oakland Zoo says another baby bison has been born at the zoo, bringing the herd count there to 23. That includes 8 calves. These bison will eventually be relocated to Montana as part of the zoo's Bison Restoration Project. The project is in partnership with the Native Indian Blackfeet Nation that started in 2018. Well, NASA officials say their lander on Mars has captured the sounds of meteoroids hitting the planet's surface. Sounds like a sonogram. Scientists say the bloop noise is because of an atmospheric effect that has also been heard in deserts on Earth. This is the first time the Mars InSight lander picked up seismic and acoustic waves there. The InSight team says it may have missed some meteorite hits before, but now that they know what to listen for, they're going to hear it. More guns inside local schools with recent discoveries in both Baltimore County and Baltimore City. The reaction we're getting from leaders and what some say needs to happen. And after the break, intermittent fasting. Everybody's talking about it, but can it really bring you some results? We talk with an expert.
The pandemic is over. If you notice, no one's wearing masks. Everybody seems to be in pretty good shape.
Well, those comments from President Joe Biden have put a damper on the chances of Congress approving his administration's request of more than $22 billion for more COVID testing, treatments, and vaccines. North Carolina Senator Richard Burr tells CNN he thinks He didn't think COVID funding was going to cross the finish line anyway, but Democrats and some independents argue the money would have prevented another surge.
What the president meant, I don't want to interpret for him, but the massive sort of shutdowns and masks and all of that, we're moving beyond that. But why we need additional funds is to keep the door shut.
Lawmakers like King say the reason the pandemic is waning is because of vaccines, some of which may need to target future variants. Well, a popular way of eating stresses the benefits of not only what you eat, but when you eat it. Intermittent fasting has been one of the hot new health trends, but does it actually work? Megan Gillen talks with a doctor.
There's all kinds of diets, but one that is trending right now is intermittent fasting, and it involves cycles of fasting for 16 to 18 hours. Some supporters claim this style of eating is more sustainable, but is it healthy? Dr. Kevin Ferentz weighs in.
And the truth is, if you do intermittent fasting and you decrease the number of calories that you take in, you're going to lose weight, because that's what weight loss is all about.
There are some who say that this can actually help prevent cancer, that it's better for your metabolism. I wanted to ask you if you think that those touted benefits are actually legit.
People who cut their calories will have decreased cancer. I'm not kidding. Weight loss does decrease your risk of cancer, dramatically decreases your risk of diabetes. But does it make a difference whether it's intermittent fasting or just decreasing your calories? Probably not.
Dr. Ferentz went on to add there's no diet better than another, again saying it's just about calories. I'm Megan Gillen, Fox 45 News.
Well, cleanliness issues plague a local health clinic, including rat and insect problems. Coming up, Inspector General Isabel Cumming joins us live to talk about the findings of her latest report. D.C. is now spending more than $20 million to help migrants and the homeless. Coming up, we take a closer look at the new programs this money will fund.
More guns are being seized from students inside schools. The most recent cases out of Baltimore County and Baltimore City. Alexa Ashwell has reaction right now from some leaders and what some say needs to be done to change and better address this issue statewide. Alexa?
Okay, we're just weeks into the new school year, and already guns have been seized from inside schools in Baltimore County as well as in Baltimore City. In the city, the latest gun to be seized from here, Connections Community School. Experts believe this points to an increase in violence, easy access to guns, and lack in accountability.
At Randallstown High School in Baltimore County, officials confirm a loaded gun was found in a student's backpack. It was the second weapon to be seized within the district just weeks into the school year. Days prior, another gun was found inside a student's backpack at Chesapeake High School.
Clearly, it's concerning anytime you have an act of violence or a weapon found in our school.
Over the radio this morning, Baltimore County Executive Johnny Olszewski expressing his concern. A similar sentiment we've heard from Baltimore City Schools FOP President Clyde Boatwright.
It's concerning that the access to firearms by our young people is so easy in our region. And, I'm concerned about the level of violence increasing in and around our schools based on the fact that young people have such easy access to firearms.
Boatwright called out city leadership after 3 incidents involving guns in or around Baltimore City schools, including the Merville High School student shot and killed in the parking lot of his school just before Labor Day weekend. And then this loaded gun recovered from Connections Community School the next week.
That's now 17 gun issues since August of 2021 in Baltimore City schools.
Boatwright believes it comes down to consequence. The teens in Baltimore County and Baltimore City found to be in possession of these guns were reportedly arrested, but exactly how the juvenile cases are handled is unknown.
If you make that choice should come with a consequence, and the consequence should be swift and it should be just. And meaning, simply put, the crime and the punishment should be equal.
Back to those Baltimore County cases, I asked police exactly what charges these students are facing. The spokesperson acknowledged my request, but I have not yet received a response. Reporting live in Baltimore, Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
In vote 2022 coverage now, the Maryland Board of Elections wants to speed up how fast ballots are counted. Right now, mail-in ballots can't be counted until 2 days after an election day. Brad Bell from our Sinclair sister station in Washington joins us live from Germantown as the Board of Elections asks for a change. Brad?
Yeah, they're asking for a change because they say under the current rules, with all of the mail-in ballots that they're expecting, and there could be a lot of them. Already 500,000 have been requested. For the primary, there were 500,000 total, so this number could be more than 1 million. They say if that many come in, they might not have the final results in some races until December or even January, so they have come to court to ask for a change. In the July 19th primary, voters requested roughly 500,000 mail-in ballots. Then 2 days after Election Day, as required by Maryland law, we watched as the process of counting those ballots began and carried on for days and days, with the results of the Montgomery County executive race not known for weeks. Now, heading into the general election, with many, many more mail-in ballots expected, the State Board of Elections is asking a judge to allow mail-in ballot counting before Election Day, something that would have been allowed under a bill vetoed by Governor Larry Hogan in May for being too broad. Hogan now supports the early counting request. But Dan Cox, the Republican nominee for governor, is fighting it. His lawyers arguing in court today that only the legislature can make rules concerning the election.
It is our position that the Constitution allows the legislature to make these rules, and particularly midstream in the middle of an election, it just undermines the confidence of the voters whom we have faith in Maryland.
So the judge has said he will issue his ruling Friday afternoon at 3. The Democrat in the governor's race, Wes Moore, is in favor of the change, getting a head start on counting these mail-in ballots as they come in. Now, we asked Cox today specifically, If he does not get this ruling in his favor, if the ballots are counted early, would he recognize and respect the results of this election? He would not answer. In Rockville, Brad Bell, Fox 45 News.
In a city in crisis, last year, a dead rat was found during an inspection at the Druid Sexual Health Clinic. Authorities say it appeared to still be there during a recent inspection. These two photos were taken 18 months apart in a storage room. The Office of the Inspector General investigated the clinic in 2020 after complaints over working conditions. Another inspection was conducted this year following complaints that nothing changed.
Well, joining us now to talk about these findings is Inspector General Isabel Cumming. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
The health department claims a contract issue with the janitor services, why the rat wasn't removed. Is that consistent with what your office found? And if so, how has this continued for years in a city with known rat issues?
I think Baltimore does have a few rat issues. Our report actually said that there was not only the rat, but there was also droppings, there was cockroaches found, there was all types of unsanitary conditions for employees that work at this clinic. And in addition, we also found when we went to like the ladies' room, the public ladies' room, the soap, there was no soap dispenser, there was a broken toilet. It's almost like it has been avoided. And that is really disheartening because we were told when the first report came out about a year ago that this was all going to be corrected. And the reason we were given as far as the rat was the fact that we were told that the contract did not include picking up rodents. So now they had to do a new contract, which will now allegedly pick up rodents.
Right. Ms. Cumming, this is a really interesting story. How did the follow-up come about? And is it normal procedure for your office to be tipped off about, let's say, ongoing issues?
Well, the follow-up came about because of a citizen. And as a result of this report, we are now going to be doing additional follow-ups on many of our reports because what we were told originally is not what happened. And we were told that these matters were actually fixed. In fact, we gave a roadmap of how to fix it. And yet OSHA just did their own investigation of this. And the Department of Health was given citations. And this really wasn't necessary if they had just followed the report that was given to them. So they had almost a year to fix the problems.
I feel bad for the people who work there and have to deal with some of these conditions. Now, we know the health department says it has submitted the necessary maintenance request to take care of the issues that are outlined in your report and that you're talking about to us right now. Are you satisfied with this response? And when will you go back in there and do another inspection?
No, I'm not satisfied with this response. I'm not. I think we owe the citizens of Baltimore. This is a public health clinic, and we owe them to make this as nice as other ones. I mean, it's at this point, it's almost a situation of equity. So we need to make sure this important health clinic is treated the same as others. So no, we will keep going back until we find that these situations have been corrected. And like I said, we're also going to be going back on some of our other reports to make sure what they have told the Office of the Inspector General is exactly what was done.
Yeah, it was coming quickly before you go. This is a health clinic. How ironic is it we've got a dead rat that hasn't been moved in like a year and a half at a health clinic?
18 months. We have a health clinic and the area that it's located is the break room because the people that work there aren't allowed to eat upstairs in the clinic. So they eat, that's their break room. And no, not many of them actually eat there. But just the fact that the conditions are like this and have been like this after an Office of Inspector General report, it's very upsetting.
Hopefully they get soap in the ladies' room.
Yes.
Well, they need a bathroom in there too. The broken bathroom was in the ladies' room as well.
Right. All right. Thank you. Isabel Mercedes Cumming, the Inspector General for the City of Baltimore. Thank you so much again for important information regarding our city.
And thank very much to the citizens who gave us the information to go back and to check this out. And we're not going to stop.
All right. Thank you.
Don't utilize us immigrants. We don't want to be used as toys in your political games.
There's nowhere to put these individuals. There's hardly anywhere to process these individuals. So this idea of, oh, you can't move migrants from one place of the country to the other. There's 2.1 million illegal apprehensions since the Biden administration has started. Where do you suspect we're going to put these individuals?
Well, making headlines, Republican lawmakers are standing by the decision to send migrants to sanctuary cities and blasting Democrats' outrage at their relocation. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has long pushed for changes to immigration and a path to citizenship. On Twitter, she said it's appalling the far right decided to commit crimes against humanity before an election. Republican Representative Beth Van Doon says shipping migrants has shed light on the humanitarian crisis at the border.
The other issue is you finally have Democrats who have been saying that there is no border crisis, open borders, sanctuary cities are great. You finally have those Democrat mayors finally saying we do have a crisis, this is an emergency.
Well, AOC has indicated her district in New York City has and would continue to welcome migrants. However, New York City Mayor Eric Adams says the influx of migrants is causing the city system to near its breaking point.
Delaware is now waiting on migrants as reports of several people are being sent to Rehoboth Beach. State leaders say they don't have much information about who's coming.
We have heard and seen the reports that all of you have seen, and we are here as a state to support people who might arrive in Delaware. The answer is no, that the governor's office has not received any outreach from either Texas or Florida.
A suspicious package closes schools down and shuts down traffic in several areas across Baltimore County. Coming up, how police and parents are reacting.
Politics and the public classroom. I'm Scott Thuman in Washington with a look at the fight between lawmakers over what should be taught.
There is a fierce debate tonight over what can and can't be discussed in public schools. A topic, gender identity. Politics is playing a central part in the fight. As part of our Crisis in the Classroom series, Sinclair's chief political correspondent Scott Thuman has new poll numbers and reaction.
Voters this November are driven to the midterms by divisive issues from the economy to crime to abortion rights, but also top of mind education. More specifically, a fight over what educators can or should teach in the classroom.
Education today, sadly, is far different than education was 20 or 30 years ago when sex ed was introduced at older ages. Now the kinds of issues and the kinds of lessons that are being pushed are at very, very young ages and often with extremely graphic and sometimes disturbing content.
A recent New York Times poll shows when asked if teachers should be able to provide instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity in elementary school, an overwhelming number, 70%, were opposed. Only 27 supported the idea.
The progressive left Democrats are trying to put politicians and bureaucrats between parents and their children.
That argument helped elect and signed bills allowing parents to see a school's curriculum.
It's a parent's child, not the state, not government's child.
In Florida, the governor promoted a new ban on lessons about sexual orientation and materials not deemed age appropriate for K through third graders. But to critics, it's discrimination, and they plan to fight back at the polls.
In the next election, your voice will matter.
Insisting the need for inclusivity has grown and must be addressed in what they see as a safe space.
You're letting a kid know that it's fine if you, for example, think you might be gay or you are trans or whatever. So it's really important at that early age to just normalize the kind of full diversity of identities that exist.
The White House, weighing in the past, has called bans on these in-classroom discussions a dangerous discriminatory trend. But that latest polling shows that voters across party lines have broad concerns about what's being taught. In Washington, I'm Scott Thuman.
Man, what a beauty. Late summer, and it feels a lot like midsummer. 84 right now. Clear skies, winds out of the west at 11 miles an hour. The big difference is the humidity is nice and low. This is not your typical summer heat in that fashion. Dew points in the 50s makes it feel pretty comfortable as we've got a low measure of moisture in the air. Mile 1 Towson, nice and bright. And a look up and down the East Coast. HT radar just fine, although our next weather maker does pop up here right around Chicago all the way up to Winnipeg and down to Minneapolis. Notice the showers and some of the thunderstorms. That will be moving our way, displacing the nice weather. Likely, I'm thinking, by tomorrow night into Thursday morning and maybe even actually all day Thursday. Some scattered showers as these double cold fronts move at us. That's going to be our next weather maker. Behind it, some of the coolest air that we have seen since last spring. Right now, 84 degrees here in Baltimore, 82 at Cockeysville, 80 at Bel Air, 83 up at Elkton, 84 down at Laurel. So if you have the backyard pool still open, a good time to go and use that. Out to our west, look at these temperatures, mid to upper 90s. What's going on here, Mother Nature? Looks like August or July with a 97 at St. Louis, 99 at Memphis. We are on the edge of some of that extreme heat, so it does stay warm again for tomorrow. But eventually, yes, cooler air is coming. Now, out in the tropics, Fiona is a Category 3 hurricane as of this morning. Still now, winds at 115 miles an hour, moving to the north-northwest at about 10 miles an hour. This eventually is likely, computer models say, and the National Hurricane Center track says, going to be going over Bermuda, perhaps as a direct hit, and then eventually lashing the Maritimes of Canada as a hurricane strength system. Then there's also now, this is new, Gaston. This was tropical depression number 8, eventually probably diminishing, turning extratropical over the northern Atlantic. And another one, a high chance of development over the next 5 days. That's over southern and western portions of the Atlantic, eventually going just north of South America. And look at these computer models. This is forecast to potentially strengthen and head its way up through the Caribbean. And if it can miss Cuba or go over the lower elevations of Cuba, could exit out into the very bath water type warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico, could become more major system and could have implications for the Gulf Coast in about a week or two. So again, that's also something we have eyes on. Now around here, it looks like, again, just some patchy clouds. Nice, comfortable start tomorrow morning near 60 degrees. Now into tomorrow afternoon, few patchy clouds, 85 to 90 for highs. And then look at the showers. There we go. That's our next weather maker with the on and off showers into Thursday morning and during the day on Thursday. High temperatures in the 70s there. Some of the coolest air, again, since we've seen last fall, low to mid 70s. Friday, Saturday, lows in the 40s and 50s, warming up by the end of the weekend.
The Baltimore Ravens are still trying to figure out what went wrong on Sunday after losing a game with the 21-point lead in the fourth quarter. Head coach John Harbaugh didn't point any fingers, but said youth and inexperience were factors in the meltdown. Several rookies gave up big plays for touchdowns. Mistakes Harbaugh says can't happen.
It's not like the end of the world. I mean, these are not complicated things. You know, these are all things that have been coached and are in the system, and everybody knows it after it happens. Oh, that's right. I've got to get that right. But in the heat of battle, when those routes are running up on you really fast and things are flashed in front of your eyes, that's what football is. That's what makes it so tough. It's not easy. It's not lines on a paper.
Well, the Ravens will try to bounce back this Sunday at 1 p.m. as they travel to Foxborough, Massachusetts to take on the New England Patriots, who also stand at 1-1. You can catch that game right here on Fox 45. And on the baseball diamond, as the Orioles chase the postseason, their outfielder is helping a University of Maryland student chase her doctoral dreams. Fatima spent weeks in the hospital in 2020 after suffering burns across more than 1/3 of her body and found comfort in her occupational therapist, inspiring her to work in that field. Well, now Austin Hayes is awarding $20,000 to this program to help her attend George Washington University's occupational therapy program. Hayes will present her with the check on the field tomorrow before the Orioles game against the Tigers. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, the latest from Baltimore County after school evacuations and a bomb squad operation. The ongoing presence on opposite ends of the county. And many of us love waking up to a cup of coffee, but how much is too much? We'll have more on that coming up. For coffee drinkers, it's hard to imagine a day without a cup of joe. And there's news coffee can be good for you. But how much is too much? Patrice Sanders has this story from Consumer Reports.
Is that first sip of coffee the best part of your morning? Well, good news. Coffee can actually be good for you.
Coffee could actually lower your risk of certain liver diseases, some types of cancers, and type 2 diabetes. And there's some evidence that it can also lower your risk of heart disease and respiratory disease.
Other research even suggests that if you drink coffee, you could live longer than non-coffee drinkers, in part because coffee is rich in antioxidants.
Milligrams of caffeine per day, the amount in 3 to 5 cups of coffee.
If you have a medical condition or caffeine sensitivity, it's always best to check with your doctor and always listen to your body. If your heart is thumping much faster than usual and you feel extra shaky and jittery, it's probably time to lay off. And if you love coffee, but you still want to sleep at night, Consumer Reports says finish your last cup around 2 p.m. That way, the majority of caffeine you've consumed has left your body by bedtime.
For every teaspoon of sugar you add, you're consuming 16 calories. And 2 ounces of whole milk adds another 38 calories and 2 grams of fat. Just something to think about when you reach for that next cup.
If you like to alternate between coffee and tea during the day, Consumer Reports says this can be good for you too. In a study published last year, researchers found that people who drank 2 to 3 cups of coffee plus 2 to 3 cups of tea per day had about a 30% lower risk of dementia and stroke compared to people who didn't drink either. Patrice Sanders, Fox 45 News.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, the president says the coronavirus pandemic is over, and his top doc says that's not the case. We'll tell you about the conflicting messaging. Adnan Syed is out of prison and on home detention ahead. What's next in the case made famous by the podcast Serial. Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. Tonight at 5, students evacuated. Police responding to the scene. The latest on what's happening at Pine Grove Elementary and middle schools.
Adnan Syed is out of prison, no longer facing a life sentence for murder right now. We're looking deeper into what happens next.
Meantime, Syed's loved ones and the attorney for Hae Min Lee's family weighing in on the judge's decision, how they're responding to his release.
We're following a tense and developing story right now out of Baltimore County, leaving parents on edge. This afternoon, Pine Grove Middle and Elementary schools were evacuated because of reports of a suspicious package. That led to a delay in bus service.
Yeah, some tense moments today. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor joins us live with all those details. Rebecca, we are told that a suspect is in custody. You reported that at 4 o'clock today.
Yes, we still have very few details about who that suspect is or what they've done. But again, someone has been arrested and connected to the suspicious package, which is now being referred to as a suspicious device. Police are also saying that that device has been neutralized. Take a listen.
So the Baltimore County Police have taken measures to have a controlled incident happen, and that was done by our hazardous device unit. But there is no threat at that time in reference to that incident.
Now, we're also learning that suspicious device was found in a car outside of the middle school. Again, we don't know who the car belongs to or what exactly was inside, but police are saying no longer a threat to the community. According to a Baltimore County school spokesperson, the school system only evacuated both Pine Grove Middle and Elementary schools out of an abundance of caution. Elementary students were taken to Lock Raven High School, while middle schoolers were taken to Parkville High School for reunification. The spokesperson also says the schools train constantly for events like this. Parents have been properly notified, and all students and staff have been removed from the school grounds safely.
We've sent messages out to all the parents at Pine Grove Middle, and I'm not sure about elementary, but I know we wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of what was happening. So we made sure that we got as much information out there as we could, as quickly as we could.
Meanwhile, we're told this scene here in Woodlawn, which is about 20 miles west of the middle school, has some kind of connection to this incident. All we know right now, though, is that around 1 this afternoon, Security Boulevard from Woodlawn Drive to 695 was closed for several hours. Police say they'll continue to update us as this investigation continues. Back out to us, you can see here, we've got 2 cop cars parked outside blocking us from getting to the school, which is just up the road. So it is still an active situation. And as for parents who might be wondering what to expect for the rest of the school week, a lot still up in the air again, a lot still changing. But school officials telling us right now, there's no threat, so expect classes to resume as usual starting tomorrow. Reporting live in Baltimore County, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Thank you. That's important information for parents to know. Well, the evacuation is causing issues for other schools in the Baltimore County school system. Bus service to over 20 schools was delayed today because of the response to Pine Grove. For a full list of schools that were impacted and updates on this story, head to foxbaltimore.com.
Continuing coverage right now on the Adnan Syed case. Syed's conviction was vacated yesterday.
He has been released on home detention after spending more than 20 years in jail for the murder of his high school ex-girlfriend, Hayman Lee, in 2000.
Prosecutors say this does not mean he is innocent. They do have 30 days to determine if they'll request a new trial.
Well, tonight we are reaching out to the families on both sides of this case and digging deeper into what could come next.
Maxine Stryker begins our team coverage. Maxine?
Well, Kai, there will either be a new trial or Syed will be a free man. But as of right now, Marilyn Mosby's office has yet to announce which direction they plan to go.
At just 17 years old, Adnan Syed was sentenced to life in prison, convicted for the murder of his ex-girlfriend, Hayman Lee. Decades later, at the age of 41, his conviction was vacated, his shackles removed, and Syed walked free down the steps of the Baltimore City Courthouse to cheers and applause. The Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office filed the motion to vacate last week after 2 alternate suspects who the defense says were not shared with them at the time were brought to light. This is known as a Brady violation. Criminal defense attorney Kurt Nachman, who's not involved in the case, says Brady violations are not common, but do jeopardize the integrity of a case.
A Brady violation is when a prosecutor either intentionally or unintentionally withholds information from the defense. It comes up after a trial is concluded. You later learn, for example, in this case, there was another suspect that was not turned over to the defense team.
Maryland Attorney General Brian Frosch's office is denying the allegations related to the Brady violations, issuing a statement saying neither state's attorney Mosby nor anyone from her office bothered to consult with either the assistant state's attorney who prosecuted the case or with anyone in my office regarding these alleged violations. The file, in this case, was made available on several occasions to the defense.
Brian Frosch's office, from my understanding, has always maintained what's called an open file policy. And that means that a defendant or a defense team of attorneys who want to go and review a file has said, hey, here's our file, come take a look at it. You can see anything. You can see the lawyer's notes, you can see the detective's files. And over the course of the decade that this case has been litigated, there has been no information at all about this supposed Brady violation.
We reached back out to Frosch's office today and were told they have no additional comment.
Global Tel-Link, prepaid call from Adnan Syed.
Meanwhile, Syed's case, made famous by the podcast Serial, is back in the spotlight. A new episode out this morning, 8 years after the first premiered.
Adnan Syed got out of prison yesterday. It was extraordinary, the whole thing.
Syed now on home detention, appearing to be with his family in a tweet posted by a friend last night, showing Syed eating leftovers from the fridge. But his future is still up in the air.
We're not yet declaring Adnan Syed is innocent, but we are declaring that in the interest of fairness and justice, he is entitled to a new trial.
Prosecutors have 30 days to decide whether to seek a new trial.
The state would have to ask for a retrial. And frankly, I'm not sure whether the state is going to be permitted to retry this case because of the double jeopardy clause of the United States Constitution. In other words, he's already had a trial, and the state, on its own volition, has elected to reopen the case.
Yet Mosby's office has not said what their next move will be. We asked her office again today, a spokesperson saying they have yet to decide. Nachman says they should have known before vacating the case.
It's very unusual to vacate someone's sentence and not have a really good understanding of what your plan is to do with the case moving forward. In other words, the state really should have had an idea of what they wanted to do.
Mosby's office could also elect to dismiss the case outright, and Syed would be a free man.
I think that Mosby's office will wait until it's convenient to hold a press conference.
Now, as far as those two new suspects, I asked Nachman if they could be tried. He says potentially police have supposedly opened up this case again and are looking into them. And if they find enough evidence, there could be a trial. Reporting live in Baltimore, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
Maxine, thank you. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost continues our live team coverage after hearing from some of the people most impacted by the case. Mackenzie, you actually went to see the family of Adnan Syed today. What are they telling you?
Yeah, Kai, we did, and they're not really talking very much. I spoke with Adnan Syed's mother and his brother, and they both tell me that at the advice of their attorneys, they're not willing to speak on camera or on the record because this case really hangs in legal limbo. His brother did tell me, though, that the news of what happened at the courthouse here yesterday still really hasn't sunk in. But for the family of Heyman Lee, their attorney tells me that they feel betrayed by what happened and really are still in shock.
For the entire time, the state of Maryland has been speaking with one voice through the state's attorney's office in Baltimore and through the attorney general of Maryland, all supporting the conviction and telling the family that Adnan is the murderer. There was no discussion with the family about the fact that this was going to be filed. There was no explanation.
Now, Kelly tells me that had Heyman Lee's brother, Young Lee, been given more time and an opportunity to travel from the West Coast to Baltimore, he would have been here in person in the courtroom listening. Kai?
And Mackenzie, the timing of the entire motion and hearing is raising questions about Marilyn Mosby's motives. Did the Lee family attorney address that?
Not really about the motive. Stephen Kelly really just coming back to the timeline about all of this in terms of just how fast he says this happened. He says that the Lee family were first notified 1 week ago today that Marilyn Mosby's office was going to file this motion, and then it was on Friday that the family found out that that hearing was scheduled for Monday, giving them just the weekend the opportunity to figure out their next legal steps. I did speak with Sean Kennedy from the Maryland Public Policy Institute, and he says that given Marilyn Mosby's federal legal problems and her political future in jeopardy, he says that those two things may have played a role in the timeline of this announcement.
It costs her nothing, and she gets the bona fides of being some kind of warrior for justice. And at the same time, she's distracting the media from the fact that her trial is going forward. I wouldn't put it past her that she did it on purpose.
There are still a lot of unanswered questions about this case, especially when you talk to the Lee's family's attorney about the victims' rights violations. We're still digging into Judge Melissa Finn and how the timeline of that played out, but we do know that this case is far from over. Live downtown, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. Well, Judge Finn, who made the decision to vacate Syed's conviction, has handed down some other high-profile and somewhat controversial decisions. That includes the case against convicted arsonist Luther Trent. Judge Finn accepted a plea deal from Marilyn Mosby's office that released Trent from jail after serving less than 6 months. Trent admitted to trying to burn down his ex-girlfriend's house with her and her roommates inside it. Judge Finn eventually overturned that plea deal. Trent is now back behind bars. In June, police say Austin Davidson killed a Wicomico County Sheriff's deputy. In 2019, he faced 20 years for armed robbery, but Judge Finn sentenced him to probation before judgment, setting him free. And days after that case, Fox 45 News learned Joseph Black, the man accused of hitting and dragging a police officer with his car, was also out on a plea deal from Finn's courtroom. He had been charged with attempted homicide, but that was pleaded down to a handgun charge, setting him free after serving just 20 months. Now, Sean Kennedy with the Maryland Public Policy Institute is critical of Mosby and Judge Finn.
The judge, at the end of the day, had the right to delay the hearing. The judge had the right to ask for more evidence, but the judge didn't do that.
Brings us to our question of the day. Do you agree with the decision to vacate Adnan Syed's murder conviction? So far, 81% of you who voted say no. We still want to hear from the rest of you. Go to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in. We'll check back on the results throughout the night. Well, fights on buses have become one of the many problems the Baltimore County school system is facing. The latest on the search for a new transportation leader who can keep students safe.
Drugs advertised to make you healthier could be actually hurting your body, according to some. The risk of taking diet pills and the new efforts to regulate them.
1 in 5 American households carries crushing medical debt. I'm Kayla Gaskins with that story from Washington.
And a gorgeous evening. If you've been holding off on mowing the lawn, I'd get it done or maybe send the kids out to do it. Temperatures falling from the 80s back into the 70s. Nice and dry. I'm going to let you know when we're going to have some rain coming in to feed those lawns and if it's in time for the beginning of fall later on this week in my Weather Authority forecast.
President Biden says he's unsure if Congress will fund the administration's $22 billion plus request to combat COVID. The White House has been pushing Congress to add more COVID funding to a spending bill to fund the government past September. But after the president's determination that the pandemic is over, Republicans say more spending is unnecessary. The nation's top infectious disease expert says he wouldn't necessarily consider the pandemic over. Dr. Anthony Fauci says the country is not where it needs to be in terms of cases and COVID precautions to safely live with the virus going forward. Despite his own comments, President Biden hasn't declared an end to the COVID public health emergency and national emergency declaration.
In more health news tonight, some people use credit cards to pay off their medical bills because they're so huge. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins explains how that burden is crushing many Americans.
A new study shows 1 in 5 households carries medical debt, and these people are more likely to be evicted, fall behind on bills, and not have enough money for food. That's even among people who have insurance. The findings of a new study by the journal JAMA Network Open suggesting medical debt deepens financial inequalities in America. About 10% of American adults carry medical debt, according to the report, including 10% of adults with private insurance. On average, an American household owes $4,600 in medical bills. The report says this debt leaves many unable to pay for utilities and worsens housing and food security. Luna Lopez with the Kaiser Family Foundation conducted another survey on medical debt earlier this year.
A majority of these adults with healthcare debt say that they have had to make, real serious difficult sacrifices in order to kind of service this debt.
Lopez says the majority of debt holders have to cut back on food, clothing, and household items. About 40% take a second job or work overtime to cover medical bills. Women, minority groups, and lower and middle income individuals are affected most. However, the current state of the economy leaves everyone more vulnerable.
With kind of cost of living increases and things like that, people are put under even more pressure so that they're maybe less, they're in a less stable position to kind of withstand an accident or a potential hospitalization. So that really leaves people a bit more vulnerable to falling into healthcare debt.
In the conclusion, the authors of the JAMA Network Open study suggest the only way to eradicate medical debt is to implement universal coverage to eliminate out-of-pocket costs, a highly controversial solution. I'm Kayla Gaskins reporting.
Man, what a beauty today, huh? 84 degrees right now. Toyota East Inner Harbor Skycam. Big boat now moving its way through the Inner Harbor. Winds out of the northwest at 10 miles an hour. Good day to be on the water, except for a little bit of chop for those small craft. Humidity at 38% and our dew points in the 50s right now. And that is some gorgeous air. Warm and dry, so a real summer holdover minus the humidity. Now, on the HD radar, I do want to call your attention to the showers and thunderstorms around Milwaukee and Michigan. Why do you care about those? Well, that is the signs of our next weather maker that's going to be moving in with our next risk of rain coming later on Wednesday into Thursday morning. For now, nice. Our latest cold front coming through really with very little fanfare. Yesterday afternoon, you saw some of those clouds. Well, that was the front. Behind it, somewhat less humid weather, but it's still warm. Now, behind this kind of double front, if you will, these two cold fronts out to our west around Minneapolis, that's seriously cooler air. And I mean, temperatures probably cooler than we've seen since all the way back last spring. All right, currently temperatures all in the low to mid 80s, should be at about 79 or so, give or take, for the average high this time of year, and we're beating that out. But take a look at this. Minneapolis right now, I mean, this is hot. 90 degrees there as you head up towards the Canadian border, 99 at Omaha, 99 at Memphis. So they're really sweating out to our west, and we're getting a little piece of that. So that's why it's so above average or warm around here. We're not really in the big dome of the heat or the heart of the heat, if you will. Notice these cooler numbers, though. Bismarck, northbound up toward Billings and the Canadian border. That's the stuff that comes at us later on this week. Now, Fiona moving north, well north of Puerto Rico after ravaging those folks. Category 3 hurricane as of this morning continues to hold that status. Eventually could be moving its way toward Bermuda later on this week, sending some swells our way. Then also there's Gaston. This just classified as a tropical storm. This will eventually end up somewhere in the northern Atlantic and just kind of dying out. And then there's also a tropical disturbance that's just to the north and northeast of South America. But look at what this thing's going to do. It's got a high chance of development, and it eventually is going to move its way north and northwest over the very warm Caribbean waters. And if it can kind of make that curve right near Cuba, we could be talking about a stronger system and maybe a hurricane or a tropical storm sometime in the next 5 to 10, maybe 15 days up into the Gulf of Mexico. So that's something else to watch. Now, overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning, just a couple of patchy clouds and just a couple of patchy clouds for tomorrow, too. High temperatures about 85 or so. And notice those showers moving in after midnight tomorrow night into Thursday morning. Fall begins on Thursday, a high 78, 70. Cool stuff. Friday, lows in the 40s. Friday, Saturday. Ravens game, of course, that's up in Massachusetts. But around here, 80 degrees and sun.
Jonathan, thank you. Fights on buses, a shortage of drivers, and a slew of other problems. The efforts in the Baltimore County school system to improve student transportation. Pushing school leaders on what can be done to keep students safe as we see a rise in guns being brought to school.
Diet pill ban. I'm Angela Brown in Washington, D.C. The state's trying to ban over-the-counter diet pills. And why?
Several states are considering bills banning over-the-counter diet pills for teens. National correspondent Angela Brown has the details.
State lawmakers in California and New York passing legislation restricting the sale of over-the-counter diet pills to minors. Those bills are sitting on the governor's desks of both states, while Massachusetts, New Jersey, and Missouri are considering similar bills. Brian Austin is the director of STRIPES, the Strategic Training Initiative for the Prevention of Eating Disorders. She calls over-the-counter diet pills a scam.
And they're selling them these products to make a buck off of children's insecurities about their body size.
There's a renewed sense of urgency. A new report found the number of teen girls going to the ER for eating disorders nearly doubled during the pandemic. And this report, published in the American Journal of Public Health, analyzing over 10,000 women ranging in age from 14 to 36, finding those who use diet pills were 5 times more likely to receive an eating disorder diagnosis within 1 to 3 years than those who did not. Another concern for researchers, diet pills laced with experimental ingredients not approved.
These products can be so dangerous that we're seeing them causing strokes, heart attacks, severe liver injury. In fact, so severe that it can lead to needing a liver transplant and death. These are not the kind of products that we want children to be buying and using.
On the federal level, Senator Dick Durbin introducing a bill to require dietary supplement manufacturers to list their products along with ingredients with the FDA.
Many people assume if that product is sold in the United States of America, somebody has inspected it and it must be safe. Unfortunately, that's not always true.
The Natural Products Association disputes that diet pills cause eating disorders, citing in a U.S. News report the lack of consumer complaints to the FDA, also saying, according to the FDA, there is no association between the two. In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
Millions of migrants heading to the border. The latest on how leaders plan to deal with the surge of people. Could your kids be using emojis to buy drugs? The warning signs you should be on the lookout for to know if they need help. And more guns being confiscated from kids in the classroom. What's being done to make sure students are safe at school?
Project Baltimore is sponsored by the Snyder Law Group. Call 410 the Firm.
A crisis in the classroom, guns in schools threatening the safety of students. Guns are being seized from students inside schools at an alarming rate. The most recent cases out of Baltimore County and Baltimore City.
Alexa Ashwell has reaction from leaders and what some believe needs to be done to change and better address this issue statewide. Alexa, what are you finding out?
Yes, Kai, Mary, as you know, we're just weeks into the new school year, and already guns have been seized from students in Baltimore County public schools as well as Baltimore City public schools. The most recent case here in the city, Connections Community School. As for Baltimore County, officials confirm a loaded handgun was found in a student's backpack at Randallstown High School. It was the second weapon to be seized within that district just weeks into the school year. Days prior, another gun was found inside a student's backpack at Chesapeake High School. Over the radio this morning, Baltimore County Executive Johnny Olszewski expressing his concern, a similar sentiment we've heard from Baltimore City Schools FOP President Clyde Boatwright. Take a listen.
It's concerning that the access to firearms by our young people is so easy in our region, and I'm concerned about the level of violence increasing in and around our schools based on the fact that young people have such easy access to firearms.
You may recall Boatwright called out leadership after 3 incidents involving guns in city schools, including the Mervo High School student who was shot and killed in the parking lot of his school just before Labor Day weekend, and then this loaded gun recovered from Connections Community School, where we are right now, that following week. Boatwright believes it comes down to ensuring swift consequence. The teens in Baltimore County and Baltimore City found to be in possession of these guns were reportedly arrested, but exactly how the juvenile cases are handled, of course, is unknown. I asked Baltimore County Police exactly what charges those teens are facing. A spokesperson acknowledged my request, but I have yet to receive a response. Reporting live in Baltimore, Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Well, tonight, Baltimore County Public Schools looking for a new director of transportation.
As Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, the search for a new leader follows a difficult year of violent fights on school buses, a shortage of drivers, and a massive scandal over bus inspections.
To ensure safe and effective delivery of students to and from their schools. That is how Baltimore County Public Schools describes the job of Director of Transportation, a job that is currently open and one that pays about $161,000 a year. It's also a job where over the past year, the person who had it did not seem to live up to its mission.
It's really important that we're responding appropriately to our stakeholders.
In August 2019, Dr. Jess Grimm left his job as principal of Chesapeake High School to become the district's new Director of Transportation. 2 years and 10 months later, BCPS started to look for his replacement. In June, the job was posted. As of mid-September, the position is still open. Shortly after Grimm took the job, the COVID pandemic hit, and Baltimore County schools went virtual for an entire year. Buses were not running. When they resumed, the problems began. From bullying to outright fighting.
This has been torture, not only to him, but also to myself.
He's not safe. He's not safe.
Parents came to Project Baltimore with concerns about their children's safety and how the school system handles discipline. The complaints from parents echoed those of former bus driver Alicia Matthews, who told Fox 45 in February that student behavior was out of control.
Kids were vaping on the bus. A child called me a bitch. The child was really aggressive. Try to charge at me. They done threw water bottles where I'm driving down the street and a water bottle is under my foot, where the kids were hanging outside the bus from the mirrors.
Matthews quit her job as a bus driver because of the violence and lack of action from school leaders, who she says were not doing enough to control the students.
There's a whole culture, I think, that needs to be changed in Baltimore County Public Schools.
The busing issues, including a driver shortage last school year, caught the attention of Baltimore County Council. In June, Councilman David Marks was one of 5 council members who signed a letter asking the school board to search for a new superintendent. The letter cites, in part, ongoing problems with buses. And then there's this.
Dr. Grimm, my name is Chris Pabst. I'm a reporter with FOX45 News. My name is Chris Pabst with FOX45 News.
In November of last year, Project Baltimore broke the story that school buses with broken parts were passing inspection and carrying students. That report led the Maryland Department of Transportation to inspect all roughly 800 county buses, finding 145 defects. In April, MDOT issued a list of recommendations to BCPS to better inspect its school buses.
One of your mechanics signed it saying the defects had been repaired, sir. They weren't repaired. Why won't you answer this question for parents?
2 months later, the district posted that the Director of Transportation job was available.
Baltimore County Schools tells FOX45 News Grimm was transferred to a different position within the district. His title changed to Manager of Business Operations in mid-August. But the school system would not say why Grimm was moved to a different role. I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Fox 45 News is your back-to-school headquarters, and we've committed to investigating any problems your kids might run into this school year, from teacher shortages to a lack of drivers. You can call our news tip line at 410-467-5595. You can also send us an email at news@foxbaltimore.com or chime in your pictures and videos on the Fox 45 News app.
Well, just after midnight, officers in Edgewater responded to a report of a shooting. At the scene, they found a victim who had been shot in the shoulder and the neck. Witnesses say the victim and a suspect were in a physical altercation, leading to the suspect shooting the victim with a shotgun. The 57-year-old Jeffrey Heisen is now in custody. Well, a deadly officer-involved shooting in Riverdale Park remains under investigation. The Maryland office of the Attorney General says officers responded to a report of a suicidal man with a gun on Monday. Officers spoke with the man at his front door, then followed him inside when the man went up to his bedroom. In the bedroom, investigators say the man ignored officers' commands to stop, then pulled a gun. One officer shot and killed the man.
In a city in crisis, another deadly shooting happens in Baltimore. City police responded to a scene in Cherry Hill. This is in South Baltimore just after 9 o'clock this morning. Officers say they found a victim with what appeared to be a gunshot wound on Booker Drive. The victim was pronounced dead at the scene. The investigation is ongoing, and anyone with information should call city police or Metro Crime Stoppers.
Well, today's shooting brings the number of people killed in Baltimore this year to 251. Last time at this time, 244 people had been killed in the city. The number of people who had survived shootings is also up. This year, we've seen 537 non-fatal shootings compared to 507 last year.
New tonight, a dead rat found during an inspection at the Druid Sexual Health Clinic over a year ago appeared to still be there during a recent inspection. Photos taken 18 months apart in a storeroom show nothing's changed. The Office of the Inspector General originally investigated the clinic in 2020 after complaints over working conditions. Another inspection was conducted this year after complaints nothing changed.
Well, in response to the most recent report, the Baltimore City Health Department says it was not originally the contracted janitor's responsibility to clear the facility of rats. And they're waiting for a new contract to begin to resolve that rat issue.
While a July inspection did find some improvements to the facility, there are still ongoing problems, according to authorities with the Inspector General's office, including rodent droppings, insects, maintenance problems in the women's restroom, and a faulty security system. The health department responded to those claims, saying it has submitted the necessary maintenance requests.
Well, it is National Recovery Month, and local leaders want you to be on the lookout to make sure your kids aren't using dangerous substances.
In tonight's Your Voice segment, Patrice Sanders talks with Harford County Executive Barry Glassman.
Did you know an emoji on your child's phone could be a red flag for drug use? Teens are able to talk about and buy drugs through text or social media platforms, often right under their parents' noses. September is National Recovery Month. In Harford County, they're trying to educate parents before their children ever need recovery services.
You know, every month we try to talk to parents about different strategies to be on the front side of protecting their children. And the emojis are different, and they have different significance when you're looking at them with on your child's phone. They may be actually indicators of some other activity or someone sending your child something. So we're pushing this out to our parents to make sure, just to be on the alert, not that anything bad is happening, but if you start seeing a certain emoji, like a snowman, more than you should, and in different contexts, it's a chance for you to talk to your children.
Well, in addition to National Recovery Month, it is also Suicide Prevention Month. The two often go hand in hand. Research indicates people with substance abuse disorders are almost 6 times as likely to attempt suicide at some point in their lives. So it's a great month for education and for awareness. Patrice Sanders, Fox 45 News.
Nearly an entire island without power. The people who live there trying to rebuild. The latest on the devastation of Hurricane Fiona.
The number of migrants coming to our southern border just hit a new record. I'm Christine Frizzell with a look at what's behind the surge and why Washington lawmakers are doing so little to respond.
And wow, what a good looking day. And if you're going to be taking a walk this evening, your walking forecast hour by hour, sunshine, going to mainly clear skies, 70s falling into the 60s. Maybe get out on the patio and do some grilling afterwards. But you know what? We do have some rain on the way. I'll let you know when that weather maker gets here. We're timing it out hour by hour on the Future Scan computer model up in my Weather Authority forecast.
In our top stories, once the White House releases applications for student loan forgiveness, it will be hit with multiple lawsuits. That means President Biden's plan to cancel up to $20,000 of debt for nearly 40 million people individually will likely be frozen within days. The state attorneys general, conservative groups, and GOP lawmakers plan to sue right away, arguing the plan is unconstitutional and Biden doesn't have the authority to do it. A legal battle weeks before the midterm elections could push Democrats to the polls to protect that plan or backfire if a judge blocks it. The Federal Reserve is expected to hike interest rates tomorrow. Most analysts anticipate a raise of about 75 basis points, a third hike in a year. The Federal Reserve chair says that hike will bring pain to households, but is necessary in the long run to stop inflation. The hike comes after a recent report shows inflation barely moved from earlier in the year despite those increases. Busloads of asylum seekers arrive in New York City. The city's mayor says a solution could be putting them on cruise ships. New York Mayor Eric Adams says more than 11,000 migrants have arrived in the city since May. More than 2,500 of them were bused from Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Adams says the city has opened up 23 emergency shelters, but housing for the migrants is, quote, nearing a breaking point. Tonight, new numbers detailing the extraordinary number of migrants encountered at the southern border. They paint a picture of the growing challenges faced by the country. Christine Frizzell has more.
For the first time ever, the number of migrants apprehended at the southern border in a single year has surpassed 2 million. After the latest numbers for August show more than 203,000 encounters, which for some cities has meant thousands of people every day.
2 days ago, we had almost 2,000. We had a little bit over 1,900.
While the number of migrants from Mexico and northern Central America has decreased for the third month in a row, U.S. Customs and Border Protection blames, quote, failing communist regimes in Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Cuba for the new wave of migration. Venezuelan migrants among those sent from Texas to the resort town of Martha's Vineyard, with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis footing the bill. But those migrants report being told they were being sent to Washington, D.C. or Boston. A Texas sheriff now opening a criminal investigation into the matter.
The allegations that we've heard is absolutely distasteful. It's disgusting. It's an abuse of human rights.
The differing approach is another example of how politics has made finding solutions near impossible on Capitol Hill, despite bipartisan immigration legislation already passing the House.
There are some who want solutions, fixes for DACA, reform our broken system, ensure pathways for citizenship, the farm worker modernization bill. The policies are out there. The political will on behalf of Senate Republicans isn't.
But others say President Biden's policies have sent the message to migrants the border is essentially open.
Sometimes 10, 12 hours after they're apprehended, they're released. And where are they released to? The overwhelming majority to local communities, local towns along the border.
Critics are also raising concerns about safety and security with these numbers. With still a month to go, already 78 people have been arrested along the southern border who are on the terror watch list. Compare that to 15 the fiscal year before and 3 the year before that. In Washington, I'm Christine Frizzell.
Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic have been devastated after Hurricane Fiona. Much of the island nation is flooded and doesn't have running water. Now, the storm is blamed for 2 deaths in Puerto Rico and 1 in the Dominican Republic. Fiona comes 5 years after Hurricane Maria devastated Puerto Rico. In fact, some of the hardest hit areas from that storm had not finished rebuilding before Fiona unleashed more damage. So, Jonathan, our hearts go out to those people there, Puerto Rico, which is a U.S. territory.
Absolutely, and really just shows you how brittle some of that infrastructure is after Maria just 5 years ago, lashing them as a major hurricane, and this just barely increasing to a Category 1 as it made that pass by Puerto Rico. Now, thankfully for us here in Maryland, Fiona's going to stay far away. Good. So we're not going to have to worry about that. But there is the potential that Fiona will threaten Bermuda later on this week and eventually move up towards the Canadian Maritimes. Around here, it's just going to be a summery Wednesday, and then a significant cold front comes Wednesday night into Thursday, and with some showers, it's going to bring in some of the coolest air since May. So how about that? Some lows in the 40s. The last time we saw lows in the 40s back on May 11th, actually my birthday, back in May of 2022. 84 degrees, sunshine, clear skies right now reported on the Mile 1 Towson Cam. Winds out of the northwest at 10 miles an hour. Humidity 38%. Dew point That's feeling kind of crisp, but the air isn't really crisp. It's warm still. The dew point nice and dry at about 56 degrees. HD radar showing our next weather maker. There it is. You can see the rain and even some thunderstorms around Chicago and Detroit. This is going to lose some muster as it moves south and east, and we see that move into that nice, beautiful air, warm air for this time of year that we've been seeing around here. That'll happen later tomorrow night. And this significant cooler air with this double cold front here behind this, again, some of the coolest air we've seen in several months. Temperatures about 80 to 85 area wide right now. And actually it gets warmer, a lot warmer ahead of that front. Look at that, 90 at Minneapolis, 99 Omaha, 97 at St. Louis. It may be a degree or two warmer around here tomorrow as well. Maybe not the numbers they're seeing across the Midwest, but we could be, say, 86, 87 degrees before this cooler air that's across the Intermountain West in the Black Hills, Bismarck, Billings, 50s, 60s, as that moves its way south and east and eventually hits the East Coast. So Fiona, there it is. We mentioned that earlier. Now a Category 3 hurricane as of early this morning. It will become a Category 4, could potentially directly impact Bermuda, and then eventually is a at least maybe Category 1 strength storm with wind and rain, could impact its final destination of the Canadian Maritimes. Then there's Gaston. That's newly formed just as the past couple hours, and that's got some maximum winds around 50, 60 miles an hour. That eventually moves into the open Atlantic. And there's also a high chance of development that makes the move into the Caribbean off of the area just north and east of South America. And take a look. These computer models put this over bathtub type warm waters and eventually could make the turn towards the Gulf of Mexico as something named as we head into about 1 to 2 weeks from now. So future scan around here, nice and quiet overnight, just a patchy cloud or two. Temperatures in the 50s and 60s. Tomorrow, clouds increase late, and we could see some showers moving in, especially after midnight, Wednesday night into Thursday morning, and on and off showers on Thursday. High temperatures gradually falling off from the mid to upper 70s back maybe into the 60s later in the day as lesser humidity moves in. Fall begins on Thursday, by the way, and it's going to feel like it. Friday, Saturday, temperatures struggle to near 70, lows in the 40s. Ravens game, of course, that's going to be up at Foxborough Sunday, but around here, 80 and sun.
All right, Jonathan, thank you. Breaking news coming up. Baltimore County Police say residents near Pine Grove Middle School can return home. We'll have an update from police at 6 o'clock. We're taking a live look at Camden Yards tonight, where the Orioles are trying to get back on track with their postseason push. Last night, the Tigers beat the O's 11-0. A rough month for the team has the Orioles 5 games out of the playoffs. Now, they hope to turn things around with the Tigers in their second game this week against Detroit. Now, this weekend, the Ravens became the first team in more than a decade to blow a 21-point lead going into the fourth quarter. Now, the Ravens had a 3-touchdown lead in the fourth before a defensive collapse allowed the Dolphins to score 4 touchdowns in the final quarter. Part of the team's struggles, 3 rookies in the secondary, which resulted in blown coverage and big-time mistakes. A lesson here. Also, the offense, which stalled out early, scoring only 3 points in the fourth. Well, the Ravens do hope to rebound next week. Don't miss them taking on the New England Patriots. That's this Sunday at 1 o'clock right here on Fox 45. That game in Foxborough. Time to check in on our weather with meteorologist Jonathan Myers.
All right, Kai, we've got a future scan that says as we head through Friday for getaways, just fine. Lots of sunshine. And then on Saturday, some patchy clouds, but overall a mostly sunny day. Sunday, this computer model saying there could be a couple of showers late, but really holding off until after sunset. Most computer models saying actually that stuff holds off until Monday. So I'm going to go for a nice looking weekend warming trend. Temperature at 70 degrees on Friday, 72 Saturday. Chilly starts in the 40s Sunday, 80 degrees and warmer with sunshine for Ravens parties. And if you're going to be out in the yard this weekend doing some work, Friday, all green, all go. Looks good on Saturday as well. Breezes die down. Sunday, great with temperatures near 80. Scattered showers move in by Monday.
All right, Jonathan, thank you. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 6 o'clock, a plane of migrants reportedly on its way to Delaware. What state leaders there know about who's on the way. And how far is too far? One group of fans is questioning a recent round of chants directed at an opposing team at a college football game.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 6.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Bubala. We're following that breaking news out of Baltimore County. Some new details after a suspicious package was found outside a middle school, causing evacuations and major bus delays. We are going to listen in as police are giving an update on what happened today.
Alrighty, we are here to provide an update in reference to the incident that occurred earlier today at Pine Grove Middle School. We can say that the incident is deemed no longer a threat at this point. We can say that reunification has been completed and all children are accounted for at this time. We will say that the incident in Woodlawn actually occurred in the 1600 block of Whitehead Court. I know there was a misconception with Woodlawn Drive earlier, but the address is 1600 Whitehead Court. We have determined a person of interest, and that person is now in custody. Charges are pending for that individual. We'll take a few questions now.
Just in terms of Woodlawn, Kearney, persons are wondering what is the connection? You said there's a connection, but different parts of the county.
So we're trying to actually figure out what the suspect actually intended and why they were in two separate areas, so that's a part of the investigation. But as soon as we have that, I'll be able to provide that to you.
Can you give us any more information on who the suspect is, what they look like?
Not at this time, because they're still a strong person of interest, so we're still wrapping up the investigation. But once we do, we'll be able to provide that.
Can you speak to the device, what was actually found inside of that car?
I can't get into the specifics of the device, but our hazardous device teams have deemed that that device is no longer a threat to the community at this time.
Now, for all the Pine Grove parents, was it just a coincidence that Pine Grove was the place and the location of this vehicle and this device, or was it planned?
So that will be something that we will reveal in our investigation, but it was actually in the area of Pine Grove, but we're saying not actually in the school.
So you did say that the device is no longer a threat. Obviously, you deemed it was a threat. That's why you had the response that you had. But was it actually a threat, this device, before it was neutralized?
So what we always do is we deem everything a threat until we are able to deem it not a threat. So that's why I use that terminology.
Can you explain what it means when you say that you neutralized the threat?
Did I say neutralized or I said deemed? I believe I said we deemed it not a threat.
How did you take care of the threat?
So our hazardous device teams, they go through a whole procedure, and through that they are able to determine that this device is not a threat to the community.
You tweeted earlier, the department tweeted earlier, that if you heard a loud boom in the general vicinity of this area, that was the neutralization of that device. Can you confirm that that's actually what happened, that was blown up?
I can't confirm necessarily that it was blown up, but our hazardous device team goes through a process where it is a controlled environment, and they are able to eliminate any type of possible threat to the community at that time.
So it was not actually on the campus of Pine Grove. Residents who live along here, should there be a reason for them to be concerned beyond just the campus itself? And in terms of proximity, was it close by or?
We can say the proximity, it was in close proximity to Pine Grove Middle School, but not actually on the campus.
Do you believe this was targeted?
I feel like, because it's not necessarily common to hear of a situation where you would just arrest a person for something that they have in their car. Was there like something that, was it called in, like somebody called in and said, hey, this person is suspicious, and there's something suspicious in their car? Was it something that someone actually saw? How did that kind of come about?
So this was part of an investigation, and through our detectives' investigation, they were able to deem that this subject had a suspicious device in their person.
And they located it on campus, or they were told that it was on campus?
They weren't necessarily told it was on campus. They just said in the area. That's all for now. Thank you.
All right, a very brief update from Baltimore County Police. That's Detective Trey Corbin talking about what happened at Pine Grove Middle and Elementary School today. Not too many new details coming out of that, but they say the threat is over after there was worry about a suspicious package found in a vehicle near these schools. Students were evacuated from the school buildings. Everyone is safe. The threat is over, and a person is in custody. We'll have a full report coming up tonight on Fox 45 News at 10.
We're not yet declaring Adnan Syed is innocent, but we are declaring that in the interest of fairness and justice, he is entitled to a new trial.
Adnan Syed is out of prison after 22 years behind bars. His murder conviction overturned as City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby cites new evidence in his case. Well, our team of reporters is following Syed's case as it's moving forward. Mackenzie Frost has been trying to reach his family, but we're going to begin with Maxine Stryker and the question of whether Syed will be tried again.
Well, there will either be a new trial or Syed will be a free man. But as of right now, Marilyn Mosby's office has yet to say which of those things will happen, so his future is still up in the air.
At just 17 years old, Adnan Syed was sentenced to life in prison, convicted for the murder of his ex-girlfriend, Hayman Lee. Decades later, at the age of 41, his conviction was vacated, his shackles removed, and Syed walked free down the steps of the Baltimore City Courthouse to cheers and applause. The Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office filed the motion to vacate last week after two alternate suspects who the defense says were not shared with them at the time were brought to light. This is known as a Brady violation. Criminal defense attorney Kurt Nachman, who's not involved in the case, says Brady violations are not common, but do jeopardize the integrity of a case.
A Brady violation is when a prosecutor either intentionally or unintentionally withholds information from the defense. It comes up after a trial is concluded. You later learn, for example, in this case, there was another suspect that was not turned over to the defense team.
Maryland Attorney General Brian Frosch's office is denying the allegations related to the Brady violations, issuing a statement saying neither state's attorney Mosby nor anyone from her office bothered to consult with either the assistant state's attorney who prosecuted the case or with anyone in my office regarding these alleged violations. The file, in this case, was made available on several occasions to the defense.
Brian Frosch's office, from my understanding, has always maintained what's called an open file policy. And that means that a defendant or a defense team of attorneys who want to go and review a file has said, hey, here's our file, come take a look at it. You can see anything. You can see the lawyer's notes, you can see the detective's files. And over the course of the decade that this case has been litigated, there has been no information at all about this supposed Brady violation.
We reached back out to Frosch's office today and were told they have no additional comment.
Global Tel-Link, prepaid call from Adnan Syed.
Meanwhile, Syed's case, made famous by the podcast Serial, is back in the spotlight. A new episode out this morning, 8 years after the first premiered.
Adnan Syed got out of prison yesterday. It was extraordinary, the whole thing.
Syed now on home detention, appearing to be with his family in a tweet posted by a friend last night showing Syed eating leftovers from the fridge. But his future is still up in the air.
We're not yet declaring Adnan Syed is innocent, but we are declaring that in the interest of fairness and justice, he is entitled to a new trial.
Prosecutors have 30 days to decide whether to seek a new trial.
The state would have to ask for a retrial. And frankly, I'm not sure whether the state is going to be permitted to retry this case because of the double jeopardy clause of the United States Constitution. In other words, he's already had a trial and the state, on its own volition, has elected to reopen the case.
Yet Mosby's office has not said what their next move will be. We asked her office again today, a spokesperson saying they have yet to decide. Nachman says they should have known before vacating the case.
It's very unusual to vacate someone's sentence and not have a really good understanding of what your plan is to do with the case moving forward. In other words, the state really should have had an idea of what they wanted to do.
Mosby's office could also elect to dismiss the case outright, and Syed would be a free man.
I think that Mosby's office will wait until it's convenient to hold a press conference.
Now, as far as those new suspects, Nachman says police have reopened the case, so they will investigate and interview them. And if there is enough evidence, it's possible they could go to trial. In Baltimore, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
Well, the family of Hayman Lee is now left searching for answers. They are critical of the legal process. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost has those thoughts from the family's attorney and members of the Syed family.
I spoke with Adnan Syed's mother and brother, and they both say that due to advice of their attorneys, they're not speaking publicly because his case really remains in legal limbo. But his brother tells me that the news of what happened still has really not yet set in. But for the family of Hae-Min Lee, their attorney tells me that they still feel betrayed from what happened in court and are still in shock.
Right there.
In a sea of people, a wave of emotion. Adnan Syed walking out of the courthouse in downtown Baltimore after more than 20 years in a jail cell. Marilyn Mosby interrupted by the eruption of applause.
They let him walk down the steps of the courthouse to a cheering crowd like he's some type of celebrity. They did that on purpose.
Sean Kennedy with the Maryland Public Policy Institute says Mosby's timing raises questions and casts more doubt on the motive behind setting free a man who had his convictions affirmed time and time again by different courts.
Marilyn Mosby resurrecting this case, this zombie of a case, in order to score political points is just disgusting. And what she's doing and putting the Lee family through is outrageous. We should never underestimate the complete disregard that Marilyn Mosby has for victims of crime in the city of Baltimore if it suits her agenda.
The Lee family isn't speaking, but their attorney, Stephen Kelly, is, and he says the family is in shock.
The clients honestly are so distraught. Tuesday of last week was the first inkling that the family got that the state's attorney's office had taken a sudden turn.
Last Tuesday was also the day before Marilyn Mosby was back in federal court for her own trial. And on Friday, Kelly says the Lee family found out about Monday's hearing.
We worked as fast as we could and put together a motion asking the court to just delay this hearing by 7 days in order to give the victim an opportunity to come to Maryland, to be present in the courtroom.
But that motion was denied, and Hae-Min Lee's brother, Young Lee, was asked to join the hearing by phone.
Do you think that Judge Finn violated the Maryland's Victims' Rights Act by doing what she did yesterday?
Yes, he had that right, and that right was taken away from him.
After Syed walking out of the courthouse Monday, the Lee family is left wondering who killed Hae.
And they are, quite frankly, very hopeless about whether anybody's ever going to be brought to justice. The family is open-minded, and if there's real evidence that he didn't do this and someone else did, they want to hear that. They didn't hear that. They weren't told about anything. They weren't told anything remotely resembling that.
And wondering why the hearing was held so fast, given the investigation from the state is not yet complete. The attorney for the Lee family, Stephen Kelly, says that Hae-Min Lee's brother would have been in Baltimore for this hearing had he been given more notice to show up. In Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Well, Fox 45 News has laid out a timeline of the critical events of the Syed case. It's currently available online, along with a list of frequently asked questions. Check out our complete coverage at foxbaltimore.com. Another plane, possibly full of migrants, on its way to the East Coast. The message Republican governors are trying to send with this new strategy.
And what a beauty. And if you're going to be heading out this evening, still looks real nice for getting a bite out to eat. You can do some outdoor seating, 70s into the 60s. I'll let you know when rain could mess this up in my Weather Authority forecast.
Now, a Fox 45 News Alert in 3, 2, 1.
More controversy as Republican governors in states bordering Mexico fly migrants to northern states. A plane believed to be carrying migrants from San Antonio is on its way to the East Coast. It's believed the plane could be headed to Delaware or New Jersey. This is Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, which is one of the possible destinations. It's also the site of President Biden's vacation home. Governors like Texas's Greg Abbott and Florida's Ron DeSantis have been busing and flying migrants out of their states, saying others should have to deal with what they call the problem of illegal immigration. Delaware state leaders say they don't have much information about who's coming.
We have heard and seen the reports that all of you have seen, and we are here as a state to support people who might arrive in Delaware. The answer is no, that the governor's office has not received any outreach from either Texas or Florida.
Well, the plane being tracked is the same one which sent a group of migrants from Florida to Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts last week. They arrived unannounced. Mary?
Guy, thank you. Well, time is running out for the Orioles. We take a live look at Camden Yards there in the sunshine ahead of a critical game against the Detroit Tigers. The O's are currently 5 games behind Seattle for the final wild card spot and are facing a team already eliminated. First pitch tonight is set for 7:05. Well, those other Baltimore Birds, the Ravens, looking for a bounce back. They'll travel to New England to take on the Patriots this Sunday at 1. You can catch that game right here on Fox 45. Well, a stunning scene in Puerto Rico. Hurricane Fiona slamming the island, leaving most of the island still without power. On the right side of your screen, Maryland's Task Force 1 is heading down to help with relief efforts. They left BWI around 1 o'clock and just landed in Puerto Rico tonight. And Jonathan, you continue to track this storm through the Atlantic and where it's headed next.
Yeah, and Mary, you know, this is now strengthened into our first Category 3 or major hurricane of the 2022 season. And here on the Fox Triplecast, you see around here, no worries about any tropical weather, at least not right now. Mile 1 Task Cam, Toyota Eastern Harbor Skycam, all bathed in sunshine. You can actually see the system that is holding Fiona away from us south of Halifax in Canada. All those lightning strikes. And the next weather maker out toward Detroit and Chicago. That's going to be moving toward us, and that's going to be a serious cold front. Now, Toyota Eastern Harbor Skycam, 83 degrees sunshine over Camden Yards right now. Winds out of the northwest at 7 miles an hour. Humidity is low at 40%. Dew points in the 50s means comfortable air. We like that, although it is quite warm for this time of year. Take a look now as we zoom in on the next weather maker moving in from Chicago, Milwaukee. Some severe weather possible over that way out of it, but as it moves east, it's going to be hitting some drier air that's in place for us. Notice this cold front that's pushing off the coast, leaving us with a nice, still warm weather today. And in fact, that's helping to force any tropical activity off the coast. But this next system, that's serious cool air behind that double cold front, if you will, that's up toward Minneapolis. Temperatures still above average today in the low and mid 80s. High temperatures around 85 this afternoon. 100 right now in Omaha, Nebraska, up to 91 at Minneapolis. But that more serious cold front again as you head up here towards places like Billings, Montana. Look at that, 53 at the current hour. We've got 68 at Bismarck. That cooler air is going to move in and evict all the warmth and that heat in the Midwest away as we head into the end of the week, just in time for the first of fall. Fiona, again, a major hurricane now moving away after devastating Puerto Rico. It's over the warm waters of the tropical Atlantic, moving northbound, could become an immediate threat over the next several days, next couple of days through the end of the week to Bermuda, and then eventually moving as a strong, maybe even still hurricane strength system up into the Canadian Maritimes. There's Gaston, that's fairly newly formed just in the past several hours, moving its way up into the northern Atlantic. And then there's this one we're going to have to watch closely, potentially for our friends down on the Gulf Coast. A high chance of development north and east of South America. It's still far away, but in about 5 to 10 days, notice the computer model trends taking this somewhere up towards the Gulf, and there's some mighty warm water here, so that could become something more significant. Now, around here, again, overnight into early tomorrow morning, just a few patchy clouds in the 50s and 60s to start tomorrow, and then for tomorrow afternoon, it looks like some more sunshine, highs in the mid to upper 80s, and notice some of these showers late Wednesday night into Thursday, and that's going to be the party over for the warmer air. I'm going to let you know how much cooler it's going to get in the exclusive 10-day forecast all the way into fall in a couple of minutes.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
NOAA's hurricane hunters are busy this week tracking Fiona in the Atlantic. Their specially designed plane spends 8 to 10 hours probing wind and pressure changes in the storm. Radar systems also scan the storm in all directions for a real-time look at the hurricane. This photo from inside the eye shows the towering wall of clouds surrounding the peaceful eye, with the stars up above.
For more content like this, like the National Weather Desk on Facebook.
Well, that chant at a recent Oregon football game against BYU caused a stir among the college football community. Chants and jeers toward the opponent have long been a part of the college football culture, of course, but when did those jokes go too far? Tonight, Ariel Harrison from our Sinclair sister station in Salt Lake City has one woman's perspective.
I flew out from the East Coast to go to this game.
Every year, Aubrey, a BYU alumni, travels to meet up with a college friend at an away football game.
We like to go to different parts of the country, different schools. It's been a lot of fun.
This year, the friends picked the Oregon game, their seats right next to the student section. It wasn't long after kickoff, though, that they got a front row seat to this.
I was actually pretty shocked after it happened at the USC game last year. I thought that it wouldn't happen again because there was so much press and so many apologies, but I was wrong.
Aubrey said the chant happened at least 5 different times throughout the game. It wasn't until the 3rd time she actually pulled out her phone to film it and then got up to alert staff at the event of what was happening. But it continued. The Oregon student section issuing this apology online Saturday night.
I appreciate apologies. I do hope there's still some learning from this because this happened so many times throughout the game.
She hopes, though, her efforts to speak out will inspire others to do the same.
I hope another thing people take away from this is to have courage to try to stop things if you hear them or see them.
The exclusive 10-day forecast, 86 for tomorrow, still about 5 to 10 degrees above average. Some showers develop Wednesday night late into Thursday, on and off. 78 for a high there. Fall begins at 9:04 Thursday evening. And look at that, just in time. Some of the coolest weather we have seen since early May. Friday, Saturday, highs struggling to 70, lows in the 40s. 80 on Sunday, so a nice warm up there as we head towards the Ravens game. Of course, that's up at Foxborough. Showers and storms on Monday of next week, and then highs in the 70s and drying out by the end of next week.
Jonathan, thanks. Well, finally tonight, how about leaving Las Vegas with $1 million a year for the rest of your life? I think it sounds good. 8 Marylanders recently went out to Sin City to compete for exactly that in the Everlasting Millions Challenge. They gained entry by scratching off golden tickets on the Willy Wonka lottery cards. Unfortunately, only 2 contestants made it past the first round, but they both walked away with $45,000. I think it was a one-time thing, not for the rest of their lives. Well, that's all for Fox 45 News at 6. Family Feud's next. We'll see you back here for the news at 10 tonight. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.